Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. You're listening to bonus week as a result of the podcast hitting 100,000 downloads. Thanks to you guys. And so as a result of that, I thought it would be fun to release a new episode every day this week, Monday through Friday. So much fun. And for a limited time this week, you can join my program, the Equip Society, utilizing a payment plan, which has never been done and won't be done for the foreseeable future. So if money has been the reason you've had to say no to that next level in your growth and no to coaching, I hope that this week helps you get a head start in your journey of becoming your highest self and working on your emotional intelligence and self-awareness. If you have any questions about any of that, you can reach out to me and I will do my best to get back with you as soon as possible, okay? When you're listening to this, I'll be on vacation still, but just feel free to reach out to me on social media, or you can shoot me an email at coaching@MacyRenee.com. So that's coaching@MacyRenee.com, okay? All right, I want to talk about the whole concept of faking it until you make it. Because this is definitely something that I used to post a lot, like the little quotes that are pre-made that you can share on your social media or wherever you want to share it, this whole concept of faking it until you make it. And I think Rihanna even has an audio of that on, Instagram Reels where she says like, fake it till you make it. And first off, I want to say that I understand this, phrase or this saying, in that what it alludes to is that you're showing up kind of as your highest self, right? Before you feel ready. So like when I talk about that on the podcast, your highest self is the version of you that does the things and makes the decisions before you feel ready. Fake it till you make it is kind of like that. I think what people allude to whenever they say that. But I want to talk about how I think that there is an even better approach than fake it till you make it. Because what I have learned over coaching hundreds of people, and I've kind of shared with you guys, I also coach for my coaches program. And that means I'm coaching hundreds of her clients. So I see a lot of this where people end up having this imposter syndrome or fraud syndrome, where you think like you're not good enough and you feel like you're having a really hard time showing up into this new identity that you're trying to create for yourself. And then the world kind of tells you, well, just fake it till you make it. Just like pretend until you're, that person. And I think that there is a distinct difference between how this shows up as highest self-work and how this translates when we're pretending to fake it, okay? So I want to kind of talk about that distinction. I'm going to do my best because I know it can kind of be a little bit fuzzy, but I'm going to try my best to make this as clear as possible. So whenever we're talking about your highest self, I want you to know that you already have that version inside of you. It is who you are. It's the desires of your heart. It's everything that you can have or could be doing, but you don't know quite how to get there yet. So let's just say you have a dream of quitting your job. You have a goal of being more present with your family. You want to be able to spend more quality time. You would like to start a podcast, or maybe you want to write a book, or, there's things on your heart that would be amazing if they happened, but maybe you're like, I don't know how they're going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to make that come into fruition. I don't feel like I'm that version of me. I don't believe it yet. My brain is giving me a lot of mind drama. It feels very challenging to believe that's ever something that could be possible for me. I see other people doing it. I sometimes have the thought, if they can do it, I can do it. But when I think about putting one foot in front of the other, it feels really impossible to do. So the way that I come in with clients who are in this phase of their life is start teaching them about your highest self. And your highest self is the version of you that already has those things, okay? So it would be as if you were looking at a version of yourself 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and the life that that version of you is living is everything that you want. It's the quality time, it's the present parenting, it's the happy marriage, it's the amount of money that you feel good with, it's the time freedom that you feel good with, or the work-life balance you feel good with. It's, the children that you desire having, the life you desire having, the things that you want or the things you don't want, the qualities that you do have or don't have. Like, you would look at that version of yourself and feel proud. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that that's their life. That's everything that I desire and that I'm wanting. And the thing about it is that you can have all of those things when you start making decisions like him or her right now. So if you want to, for instance, let's say start a podcast, you would make decisions as if you already have a podcast. What would someone with a podcast be doing? You would have to have equipment. You would have to figure out what programs you're going to have to use. You would have to decide what topics you want to talk about. And so rather than be in this daydreaming state where you're like, must be nice, or I wish it would happen, or I don't know how it's ever going to happen, or I can't figure out how to make it happen, you would just start making the little tiny decisions today as if you're already a podcaster. So for me, it was like, I had this desire to maybe start a podcast. I didn't know what the title was going to be. I didn't know what the topics were going to be. But I knew that if I believed I was already a podcaster with 100,000 downloads, there would be steps that needed to happen right now. And that first step for me was ordering the equipment off of Amazon. After I ordered it off Amazon, it's set in a box for like 4 weeks because my brain freaked out. Like, this is not you. Holy crap. Like, who's going to listen to you? How you don't even know what equipment to use, what programs to use, what software to use. Like, I didn't know any of that. Okay. And I think that sometimes that feels daunting to us because obviously our brain likes predictability. It likes to know point A to point Z ahead of time so that we don't have to feel pain. So it thinks that if we knew all of the steps ahead of time, we could avoid the pain. So when we don't know all of the steps ahead of time, it keeps you in this place of like panic and fear and just don't even start. And I don't have time and I don't have the money and I can't and I can't and I can't. But your highest self would take action as if you were already him or her. And so it starts with the little baby steps. So like, for instance, if you wanted to write a book, what's the first step of writing a book? Sitting down and just writing things that feel good to you, writing things that you're learning, writing things that you find interest in, writing things that you think maybe you'd want to talk about in a book. Everything else will fall into place when you're showing up as your highest self now. If you have a desire to be an author, you need to show up as an author now. If you have a desire to show up as an entrepreneur, you need to be showing up as an entrepreneur now. And it doesn't mean that you just go out and necessarily have to like start your business or launch a business, right? It can mean that how would your highest self make decisions as that person? So as someone who writes a book, how would they make decisions? As someone who is present with their family, what decisions would you make? As someone who has the amount of money that you want to have, what decisions would you make, right? And that's another example that I can kind of go down a rabbit hole with. I'll keep it short and sweet. But like whenever I knew that I wanted to change my life, I knew that there were investments I was going to have to make. Current Macy at that time didn't feel it was possible, didn't have the money, had all of the mind drama, had all of the stories, saw all of the roadblocks. But highest self Macy, who already was living the life I desired, who, had ample amount of money to live a lifestyle that felt good or ample amount of time, I had to access her. What would she do? Well, if I'm thinking, oh, I already have the money, I already have the time, I'm already living the life I want, she would just make the investment without fuss, right? Without a lot of drama. She would just do the thing. There wouldn't be a lot of wishy-washiness. She would feel confident making the decision, know that she's supported, right? And this is all talking about myself as my highest self. And so that is where I made my decisions. I made my decisions as who I was becoming, not who I currently was in that moment, because who I was in that current moment wasn't where I was trying to go in my future. So this makes sense. So when people say fake it till you make it, a lot of times that's what they're alluding to. Like, just pretend that things are going good or that you can be that person until you feel like that person. So the overarching, point of that phrase, I completely get. But here's what happens whenever we're using that phrase and not really thinking about the repercussions of that. Like how powerful words are. And Brené Brown talks about this, like words are so powerful. If we do not distinguish the difference, it has different meanings for everybody. The way that it lands is different for everybody. And so we have to be aware enough to expand our language and question the way that we use certain words and the way that words make us feel, because it impacts how we show up. And I'm seeing this as someone who coaches a lot of people, especially in entrepreneurship for my coach, right? So with that being said, when people are showing up with the whole fake it till you make it mentality, what they're leading with is, this isn't me. This is not who I am. This is fake. This is a fraud. This doesn't feel natural to me. This doesn't feel like who I've been, but I'm going to pretend like everything is okay. So that way, I feel good until I make it to where I want to be. Now, in describing it like that, I don't know about you listening to it, but it even felt like a different energy for me to even say it versus how I feel whenever I'm showing up with using the word of I'm going to show up as my highest self versus I'm going to show up and fake it. Okay? Because if I showed up to this podcast when I first started and pretended I'm going to fake it until I make it, I'm going to pretend, I'm going to show up as, whatever persona I need to survive. That's kind of what faking it is, right? That wouldn't have felt natural, and I probably would have been questioning everything I talked about on the podcast. I probably would have a lot of drama and a lot of imposter syndrome, feeling like, who am I to talk to all of these people about, changing their life and becoming more self-aware and emotionally intelligent and expanding their mind when I'm faking it? Do you see the difference? Versus whenever I felt like, what would my highest self do? My highest self has learned XYZ. My highest self has done these steps. My highest self knows how to show up, because if I believe I am already her, it impacts the way that I'm going to show up to you today. But if I believe that I am being fake, it's going to feel very out of body for me. So I don't love the phrase as I get older and, learn the importance of words and how we think and how what we think makes us feel. And what I'm seeing in my experience of coaching other people who are entrepreneurs is, this idea of fake it till you make it makes you feel like you're showing up in an identity that isn't you and will never be you. And so when you're leading that way, of course it feels foreign and awful and out of body, and like you don't know how to align yourself with it. Now, whenever you quote unquote make it, then it's like, oh, I fake it till I make it, and then, everything's good. And I think that there's a lot of greatness behind this phrase, like the reason that it was created. But I think knowing the importance of words now and seeing like what it does to people psychologically is that they don't feel connected to the identity that they are building within themselves. They don't feel comfortable stepping into it because their brain is leading with the idea that all of it is fake. So that's something really important to think about, like whenever you're, using phrases that feel very innocent in the moment, like really get curious with how is it impacting the way that you're actually showing up. So if you have been feeling like a fraud, if you have been feeling imposter syndrome, if you feel like it's been really hard to actually become the version of yourself that you desire to be, ask your brain if you are faking it until you make it. Like if you're leading with this idea that it's fake and it's not real and it's something you have to pretend to be, or if you are showing up as who you believe you already are. There's a very big distinction there of showing up as who you believe you have the capacity to step into and showing up as something that you're not. So I hope that this helps distinguish the difference. And I, truly think that what Brené Brown teaches, like the importance of words and how we use them and how we understand them, and increasing our vocabulary to, utilize words in a powerful manner and understand things in our life in a powerful manner. It really is so important and can change the way you feel as you are stepping into who you desire to be and become. So I hope that you enjoy this episode, and I will see you guys again tomorrow for the remainder of bonus week. Have a great week, guys.